The elevator climbed to the 23rd floor with its familiar mechanical hum, carrying me toward another day at Morrison & Associates Marketing. Through the polished steel doors, I glimpsed my reflection, pressed navy blazer, portfolio tucked under my arm, the same determined expression I'd worn for 3 years climbing the ranks from junior account coordinator to senior project manager. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The doors opened to reveal the bustling energy of Chicago's premier marketing firm. Glass-walled conference rooms lined the perimeter, each one a theater where million-dollar campaigns were born and died. The scent of fresh coffee mixed with the faint hum of printers and the soft chatter of morning meetings already in progress. I made my way to my desk, a corner spot I'd earned through late nights and weekend campaigns that consistently exceeded client expectations. My workspace was organized chaos, color-coded project folders, a whiteboard covered in timeline sketches, and a small succulent that somehow thrived under fluorescent lights. Morning, Stacy. Jennifer Chen, one of the junior designers, appeared at my cubicle wall with a steaming mug. The Peterson Automotive campaign presentation is today, right? 10:30 sharp, I confirmed, pulling up the final slides on my monitor. Conference room A. I spent the weekend polishing the pitch deck. The Peterson account had been my baby for 6 months. A struggling car dealership chain needed a complete brand overhaul, and I'd crafted a strategy that would position them as the neighborhood's trusted automotive partner rather than just another sales lot. Market research, focus groups, creative direction, I'd orchestrated every element. Marcus Webb's voice boomed across the open floor before I saw him. Collins. My office. Now. 20 pairs of eyes glanced up from their monitors. Marcus had that effect. His presence demanded attention even when he wasn't trying. At 42, he commanded Morrison & Associates' largest client portfolio with the confidence of someone who'd never questioned his place in the corporate hierarchy. His corner office was a monument to success. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago River, while the walls displayed framed campaigns he'd led, industry awards, and a Harvard MBA that caught the light just right. Marcus sat behind a mahogany desk that probably cost more than my car. Sit, he said without looking up from his laptop. The leather chair across from him was positioned slightly lower, a power play I'd noticed months ago but never mentioned. About the Peterson presentation, he began, finally closing the laptop. I'm reassigning it. The words hit like ice water. Reassigning? Marcus, I've been developing this campaign for 6 months, I know. He leaned back, fingers steepled. And it's solid work. But Peterson specifically requested senior leadership on this pitch. They're nervous about the investment, want to see our A-team. I'm the A-team on this account. I know their market better than anyone else here. Marcus's smile was thin, practiced. Stacy, you're talented. No one's questioning that. But leadership isn't just about knowing the market. It's about presence, gravitas, the ability to command a room full of executives who've been making deals since before you graduated college. Heat rose in my chest, but I kept my voice level. And you don't think I have that? I think you're not leadership quality. Yet. The words were delivered with surgical precision. You're detail-oriented, you execute well, you follow instructions. Those are valuable traits in a project manager. But Peterson needs someone who can think strategically at the C-suite level. My hands remained steady on the chair arms, but inside, something was crystallizing. Who's taking the lead? David Reeves will handle the presentation. You'll support him with the background research. David Reeves. 2 years younger than me, hired 8 months ago from a smaller firm, with half my client experience and a tendency to take credit for collaborative ideas. But he had something I apparently lacked. He looked the part. 6'2", silver at the temples despite being 30, and a voice that filled conference rooms with effortless authority. The presentation is in 2 hours, I said. David's been briefed. He'll do fine. I stood slowly, smoothing my blazer. Is there anything else? Marcus was already opening his laptop. That's all? And Stacy? This isn't personal. It's business. Someday you might understand the difference. The walk back to my desk felt longer than usual. Conversations dimmed as I passed, the way they do when people sense something has shifted in the office ecosystem. I sat down and stared at my monitor, the Peterson presentation slides still glowing on the screen. Jennifer appeared again, concern creasing her forehead. Everything okay? Fine, I lied, closing the presentation file. Just some last-minute changes. 2 hours later, I sat in the back corner of conference room A, a notepad in front of me and rage simmering quietly in my chest. Peterson's executives, 3 middle-aged men in identical gray suits, listened as David presented my strategy with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted his right to be in that room. Our research indicates that modern car buyers want relationships, not transactions, David was saying, clicking to a slide I'd crafted at midnight 3 weeks ago. We're proposing a complete shift in messaging that positions Peterson as your neighborhood automotive partner. The clients nodded, impressed. One of them, Peterson himself, leaned forward with interest. How do we execute that practically? David hesitated for a fraction of a second, the first crack in his polished presentation. I could see him scanning the slides, looking for talking points he hadn't memorized. This was the moment where deep market knowledge mattered, where 6 months of research and strategy development became crucial. Well, David began, we'd implement a comprehensive approach to community engagement. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Peterson's expression shifted from interest to confusion. Marcus shot a sharp glance toward the back of the room. I could have stayed silent. Could have let David struggle through the explanation he didn't understand. Instead, some deeper instinct took over. If I may, I said, standing up. All eyes turned toward me. The community engagement strategy has 3 specific phases. First, we partner with local schools and youth sports leagues. Peterson's demographic research shows 68% of your customers have children under 16. Second, we establish a neighborhood nights program where customers can bring their families for car care education and community building. Third, we create a referral incentive that rewards customers not just for sales, but for bringing their neighbors in for service. Peterson's eyes lit up. Now that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. David looked like he'd swallowed glass. Marcus's jaw was tight, but he managed a smile. Stacy Collins, everyone. She's been instrumental in developing this strategy. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The meeting continued with Peterson asking increasingly detailed questions that only I could answer. By the end, we'd secured the contract and Peterson had specifically requested that I remain the primary point of contact. As the clients filed out, Marcus approached me. His voice was low, meant only for my ears. Well played, he said. But don't think this changes anything. You saved the presentation, but you're still not leadership material. Leaders don't wait to be called on. They take control from the beginning. I met his gaze steadily. I'll remember that. 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm. The Peterson campaign launched to immediate success, their sales jumped 23% in the first month, and customer satisfaction scores reached levels they hadn't seen in 5 years. Industry publications picked up the story, praising the innovative approach to automotive marketing. My name was mentioned in the trade articles, but always as part of the Morrison and Associates team led by Marcus Webb. Credit flowed upward, as it always did. I threw myself into other projects with renewed focus. The Hartwell Restaurant Group needed a digital transformation strategy. Pinnacle Insurance wanted to rebrand for millennial customers. Each campaign became a chess move, each success a quiet declaration that leadership quality couldn't be contained by someone else's narrow definition. The first crack in Marcus's authority came during a Thursday morning staff meeting. Morrison himself, the silver-haired founder who rarely descended from the executive floor, made an unexpected appearance. Ladies and gentlemen, Morrison announced, I want to congratulate the team behind the Peterson automotive success. It's exactly the kind of innovative thinking that keeps us ahead of the competition. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the conference table. Marcus straightened in his chair, preparing to accept the praise. Specifically, Morrison continued, I want to recognize Stacy Collins for her strategic insight and client relationship management. The Peterson executives have been raving about her approach. The room went quiet. 20 pairs of eyes flicked between Morrison, Marcus, and me. I felt the shift like a change in barometric pressure. Thank you, Mr. Morrison, I said evenly. The whole team contributed to that success. But Morrison wasn't finished. In fact, Stacy, I'd like to see you in my office after this meeting. I have some opportunities I'd like to discuss. Marcus's face remained neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. After Morrison left, the meeting continued with strained normalcy. When it ended, Marcus lingered as others filed out. Whatever Morrison wants to discuss, he said quietly, remember where your loyalties should lie. I've been your advocate here for 3 years. Don't forget that. Morrison's office occupied the entire northwest corner of the building, with windows facing both the river and the lake. The man himself was 73 but moved with the energy of someone half his age. He'd built Morrison and Associates from a 2-person startup into Chicago's premier marketing firm, and every decision still flowed through his desk. Sit down, Stacy. Coffee? I accepted the cup, noting it was served in actual china rather than the paper cups used in most meetings. Small details mattered in this business. The Peterson campaign was exceptional work, he began, settling into the chair across from me rather than behind his desk. But I suspect you know that. Thank you. It was a team effort. Morrison smiled. Let's skip the modesty. I've been in this business for 45 years, and I know the difference between team effort and individual brilliance. Peterson called me personally to praise your strategic thinking and client management. He leaned forward slightly. Tell me, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing Morrison and Associates right now? The question caught me off guard. In 3 years, no executive had asked my opinion on company-wide strategy. I considered it carefully before answering. We're becoming too dependent on traditional approaches in a rapidly evolving market. Our client base is aging, and we're not adapting fast enough to capture the companies that will dominate the next decade. We need to evolve or risk becoming irrelevant. Morrison nodded slowly. And how would you address that? 3-pronged approach. First, actively pursue tech startups and emerging industries that value innovation over pedigree. Second, invest in digital transformation capabilities that go beyond traditional advertising. Third, develop leadership from within instead of constantly hiring from outside. Interesting. And what makes you think you could execute that kind of transformation? The question hung in the air. This was the moment where self-doubt would normally creep in, where Marcus's voice would echo in my head about not being leadership quality. Instead, I felt a strange calm. Because I understand that leadership isn't about commanding a room or having the right background. It's about seeing opportunities others miss, building trust with clients, and delivering results that speak for themselves. The Peterson campaign wasn't successful because someone told me what to do. It was successful because I understood the market better than anyone else and had the courage to propose something different. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, studying me with the intensity that had made him a legend in the industry. Stacy, I'm going to share something with you that stays in this room for now. Morrison and Associates is expanding. We're opening a new division focused on emerging markets and digital transformation. I need someone to run it. My coffee cup paused. Halfway to my lips. The position would be Senior Director of Strategic Innovation. You'd have your own team, your own client portfolio, and complete autonomy over strategic direction. It's a leadership role that reports directly to me. The words seemed to echo in the vast office. Senior Director. Leadership role. Direct report to the founder. I'm interested, I managed. Good. There are some formalities to work through, board approval, HR processes, that sort of thing. But I wanted to gauge your interest before moving forward. Can you keep this confidential until we make it official? I nodded, still processing the magnitude of what he was offering. One more thing, Morrison added as I stood to leave. This position would make you Marcus Webb's peer. Are you prepared for that dynamic? I thought about 3 years of having my ideas minimized, my contributions credited to others, my leadership potential dismissed with surgical precision. I'm prepared for whatever the role requires, I said, walking back to my desk. I felt like I was moving through a different office. The same fluorescent lights, the same gray carpet, the same hum of productivity, but now I saw it through the eyes of someone who would soon help shape its direction. Marcus appeared at my cubicle within an hour, his expression carefully neutral. How did it go with Morrison? Fine. He wanted to discuss the Peterson campaign. That's all? I met his gaze steadily. That's all. But we both knew something had shifted. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed Marcus watching me more carefully. He asked pointed questions about my project timelines, inserted himself into client calls where he'd previously given me autonomy, and made subtle comments about the importance of team loyalty. The announcement came on a Tuesday morning. Morrison called an all-hands meeting in the main conference room, something that happened maybe twice a year. The entire staff crowded in, speculation buzzing in hushed conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, Morrison began. As you know, Morrison and Associates has been growing steadily for the past 5 years. That growth has created an opportunity for expansion. He clicked a presentation slide showing organizational charts and new division structures. Effective immediately, we're launching our Strategic Innovation Division, focused on emerging markets and digital transformation. This division will operate with complete autonomy and report directly to executive leadership. The room was silent, everyone waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm pleased to announce that Stacy Collins will be leading this division as Senior Director of Strategic Innovation. The silence stretched for a heartbeat before polite applause filled the room. I felt 20 pairs of eyes turn toward me, some surprised, some impressed, some calculating how this shift might affect their own positions. From the back of the room, I caught Marcus's expression. His polished composure had cracked, revealing something raw underneath: surprise, betrayal, and the dawning realization that the power dynamic he'd taken for granted had just been completely upended. Morrison continued with details about the new structure, team assignments, and transition timelines. But I barely heard the words. I was watching Marcus's face as he processed the reality that his former subordinate was now his organizational equal, with direct access to the founder and autonomous authority over her own division. After the meeting, people approached to offer congratulations. Jennifer Chen beamed with pride. "This is amazing, Stacy. You totally deserve this." David Reeves, who'd presented my Peterson campaign 6 weeks ago, shook my hand with what might have been genuine respect. "Congratulations. That's a big role." Marcus waited until the crowd thinned before approaching. His smile was professionally perfect, but his eyes held a coldness I'd never seen before. "Congratulations," he said. "I hope you're ready for the responsibility." "Thank you. I am. Leadership at this level isn't like managing projects, Stacy. You'll be making decisions that affect the entire company. There's no room for learning on the job." I tilted my head slightly, studying his face. "I appreciate the concern, Marcus. I'm sure I'll figure it out." The words hung between us, polite on the surface but charged with a new dynamic neither of us had navigated before. For 3 years, he'd held the power to define my potential, to decide which opportunities one deserved, to determine whether my contributions warranted recognition. Now, for the first time, we stood on equal ground. My new office was on the 24th floor, one level above the main operations. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Chicago's skyline, while the space itself was modern and uncluttered, a blank canvas for the division I was building from scratch. The Strategic Innovation Division started with just me and 2 transferred employees, Jennifer Chen, who'd proven herself brilliant at digital strategy, and Michael Torres, a data analyst whose insights had quietly improved every campaign he touched. Within 2 months, we'd hired 4 more specialists and secured our first 3 clients. Our approach was different from traditional Morrison and Associates work. Instead of polished presentations and established playbooks, we focused on rapid prototyping, data-driven iteration, and creative solutions that established companies wouldn't risk. We worked with a sustainable fashion startup, a fintech company targeting Gen Z, and a food delivery service expanding into suburban markets. Each success built our reputation within the industry and, more importantly, within Morrison and Associates itself. Other divisions began requesting consultation on their most challenging projects. Clients specifically asked for our team's involvement in their campaigns. Marcus's response to our growing influence was subtle but unmistakable. He began scheduling competing meetings during our client presentations, redirecting resources that had been promised to our projects, and making comments about the experimental nature of our division during company-wide discussions. The tension came to a head during a quarterly review meeting with Morrison and the senior leadership team. We were presenting results from our first 6 months, client satisfaction scores averaging 4.8 out of 5, revenue growth of 34% from our accounts, and industry recognition that had generated 3 new business inquiries. "Impressive numbers," Morrison said as I concluded the presentation. "The Strategic Innovation Division is exceeding every projection we made." Marcus cleared his throat. "The numbers are good, but I think we need to consider sustainability. Some of these approaches work for startups and experimental companies, but I'm not sure they scale to our traditional client base." I kept my expression neutral. "Could you be more specific?" "Well, take the Peterson account. Yes, the initial campaign was successful, but sustaining that level of innovation across all our automotive clients isn't realistic. At some point, we need proven strategies rather than constant experimentation." The irony was perfect. Peterson Automotive, the campaign he'd tried to take credit for, was now being used to question my division's approach. "Actually," I said, pulling up a new slide, "Peterson's results have continued to improve. They're now our highest performing automotive client, and we've used similar strategies to secure contracts with 3 other dealership groups. The approach isn't just sustainable, it's scalable." Morrison leaned forward with interest. "How scalable?" "We've identified 17 companies in adjacent markets that could benefit from similar innovation. Conservative estimates suggest $2.30 million in new revenue over the next 18 months. The room went quiet. $2.3 million was significant money, even for Morrison and Associates. Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's optimistic. I think we need to be careful about overpromising to potential clients." "I'm not overpromising," I replied evenly. "I'm presenting database projections from documented market research. The same research methodology that predicted Peterson's success." Morrison's eyes flicked between Marcus and me, and I could see Him processing the dynamic playing out in his conference room. Two senior leaders, theoretically peers, but with a history that complicated their professional relationship. Marcus, Morrison said finally, what's your assessment of the Strategic Innovation Division's impact on company operations? It was a direct question that demanded a direct answer. Marcus hesitated, clearly weighing his response. The division has produced good results, he admitted. But integration with existing operations has been challenging. Some of their methods don't align with established Morrison and Associates practices. Such as? Another hesitation. Well, they often bypass traditional approval processes, work directly with clients without coordinating through account management, and their project timelines don't always sync with company-wide planning cycles. I realized what was happening. Marcus was trying to position our autonomy, the very independence Morrison had promised, as insubordination. May I respond to that? I asked. Morrison nodded. The Strategic Innovation Division operates with the autonomy that Mr. Morrison specifically requested. Our direct client relationships and flexible timelines aren't bypassing company processes, they're fulfilling our mandate to explore new approaches that complement traditional methods. Our success comes from being able to move quickly and adapt to client needs without getting bogged down in lengthy approval cycles. I clicked to another slide. However, if integration is a concern, we can establish clearer communication protocols while maintaining the operational flexibility that makes us effective. It was a diplomatic response that acknowledged Marcus's concern while subtly emphasizing that our authority came directly from Morrison himself. Morrison was quiet for a moment, then smiled. Stacy, I think that's exactly the right approach. Marcus, work with Stacy's team to develop those communication protocols. I want both divisions collaborating effectively. The meeting ended with handshakes and professional pleasantries, but I caught Marcus's expression as people filed out. The realization was settling in, he couldn't simply override my decisions anymore. Any conflicts between our divisions would need to be resolved as equals, with Morrison as the final arbiter. Later that afternoon, Marcus appeared at my office door. The 24th floor was quieter than the main operations level, and his footsteps echoed on the polished concrete floors. Do you have a minute? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. The role reversal wasn't lost on either of us. 3 months ago, I'd been the one asking for his time. I think we need to clear the air, he began. The company works better when senior leadership is aligned. I agree. Good. Then you'll understand why I'm concerned about some of the mixed messages your division is sending to clients and staff. I leaned back in my chair, studying his face. What mixed messages? Your team has been suggesting that traditional marketing approaches are outdated. That can undermine confidence in the work we've been doing successfully for years. We've never said traditional approaches are outdated. We've said they're not sufficient for every client or every market. There's a difference. Marcus's smile was thin. Stacy, I've been in this business longer than you've been out of college. I know how clients think, how they make decisions, what they need from an agency. Your division's success is impressive, but 6 months doesn't establish industry expertise. There. It was the same dismissive tone that had defined our relationship for 3 years. The assumption that experience trumped results, that seniority mattered more than performance. But now we sat across from each other as equals, and the power dynamic he'd relied on no longer existed. You're right, I said calmly. 6 months doesn't establish industry expertise. But 34% revenue growth, industry recognition, and client satisfaction scores that exceed company averages do suggest we're doing something worth paying attention to. Numbers can be misleading, Marcus, I interrupted, my voice still calm but with an edge of steel. Let me save us both some time. You're concerned that my division's success might reflect poorly on traditional approaches you've championed. You're worried that Morrison might question why our innovative methods are working better than established practices. And you're uncomfortable with the fact that someone you once dismissed as not leadership quality now has the same organizational authority you do. His face flushed slightly. I'm not finished. I leaned forward, meeting his gaze directly. Here's what's going to happen. The Strategic Innovation Division will continue operating with the autonomy Morrison granted us. We'll develop those communication protocols you requested, and we'll collaborate professionally whenever our work intersects. But I won't be questioning my methods or scaling back my ambitions to make you more comfortable. The silence stretched between us. Outside my windows, the Chicago skyline glittered in the late afternoon sun. You've changed, Marcus said finally. No, I replied. I haven't changed at all. I'm the same person who developed the Peterson strategy, who saw opportunities in emerging markets, who understood client needs better than anyone else on the team. The only thing that's changed is your ability to ignore that. He stood slowly, smoothing his tie. We'll see how sustainable this approach really is. Yes, I agreed. We will. After he left, I sat alone in my office as evening settled over the city. The conversation had been necessary, establishing boundaries, making expectations clear, ensuring that old patterns wouldn't resurface in our new dynamic, but more than that, it had been a moment of complete professional clarity. For 3 years, I'd accepted Marcus's assessment of my potential, internalized his dismissal of my leadership capabilities, and worked within the limitations he'd imposed. Now, with 6 months of unprecedented success behind me and a division that was reshaping how Morrison and Associates approached innovation, I finally understood what leadership actually meant. It wasn't about commanding rooms or fitting someone else's idea of executive presence. It wasn't about having the right background or saying the right things in meetings. Leadership was about seeing opportunities others missed, building trust through consistent results, and having the courage to pursue your vision even when others questioned your qualifications. 3 months later, Morrison and Associates announced its most profitable quarter in company history. The Strategic Innovation Division had contributed 28% of total revenue despite representing only 15% of staff. Our client retention rate was 100%, and we had a waiting list of companies requesting our services. During the quarterly celebration, Morrison made a point of recognizing our contribution. The Strategic Innovation Division has exceeded every expectation, he announced to the gathered staff. They've proven that taking calculated risks and embracing new approaches doesn't just benefit individual clients, it strengthens our entire organization. From across the room, I caught Marcus's eye. He raised his glass in a gesture that might have been congratulatory or might have been acknowledgement of a war well fought. Either way, it was respect, something that had taken years to earn but had ultimately been worth the wait. Later that evening, as I packed up my office after the celebration, Jennifer Chen stopped by with a bottle of champagne. For the woman who proved that leadership quality can't be defined by someone else, she said, setting the bottle on my desk. I smiled, looking out at the Chicago skyline one more time. You know what the best part is? What? He was right about one thing. I'm not leadership quality, not the kind he was looking for. I'm something better. I'm the kind of leader who creates opportunities instead of waiting for permission, who builds teams instead of managing subordinates, and who measures success by results rather than appearances. The city lights twinkled below us, each one representing businesses, dreams, and people working to build something meaningful. Somewhere out there were clients whose companies had grown because our team had seen possibilities others missed. Somewhere were team members who discovered their own potential because they'd been given room to innovate. That was leadership, not the ability to command a room, but the ability to create environments where others could thrive. And Marcus had been wrong about something else, too. Leadership wasn't about presence or gravitas or fitting someone's predetermined notion of what an executive should look like. It was about being so undeniably good at what you do that eventually, the market writes its own performance review. 6 months after that conversation in his office, Marcus Webb left Morrison and Associates for a position at a smaller firm. His departure was announced as a mutual decision to pursue new opportunities, but everyone understood what had really happened. The industry had evolved, and he hadn't evolved with it. I didn't attend his farewell party. I was too busy preparing for a presentation to Morrison about expanding the Strategic Innovation Division into 3 new markets, because in the end, the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong about your potential, the best revenge is building a life so successful, so firmly your own, that their opinion becomes completely irrelevant. True leadership writes its own value, and the market never forgets. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.